You may have noticed over the last few years there are fewer and fewer turkeys utilizing the property where you hunt. It could be that you've noticed you're having a hard time killing turkeys, or that you are not seeing the number of turkeys or even hearing gobbles on your property or even on your neighbor's property. There are many different reasons why you may not be seeing as many turkeys as you'd like to, and some of them are out of your control. However, there are quite a few things that you could do, and even some things that you should stop doing in order to see more turkeys where you hunt, and that can happen in even as little as a year. So in this video, we're going to go over 2 things you need to do and 1 thing you need to absolutely stop doing in order to improve the turkey habitat and hunting where you hunt. I'll go ahead and say right at the top of this video that these tips do not include anything like trimming roost trees or planting an entire food plot in chufa. But before we get into these tips, do me a favor, and if this is your first time on my channel, hit that subscribe button and make sure you click the bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload a video. And the first tip to improve the turkey habitat and the hunting on your property is you need to absolutely increase the amount of good quality nesting cover. This could be accomplished in a few different ways. You should already be implementing some sort of TSI or timber stand improvement and a prescribed fire rotation on your property. So we're going to go a little bit further than that. If you have areas on your property, the property that you hunt, where you have just giant stands of monoculture cedars, you absolutely need to get in there and just start hacking them down. Now, I'm not talking about a few cedars here and there or like a small patch of them. I'm talking about these giant patches where everything is so crowded out. The cedars are even self-pruning themselves. Just a bunch of sticks standing up there and just barren open dirt and needles underneath. Now, before I get a lot of dislikes and people screaming at me about these big cedar thickets, I know a lot of people say that the deer on their property live in those cedars. They love to bed in there. That's where all the deer are. However, I'm going to go ahead and say that's not true. They might be areas where deer like to go, but it's not because of those cedars in there. I encourage everybody, before they even start debating whether or not they should cut down cedars, is to go listen to a Land and Legacy podcast. I think it's podcast number 324, where they dive into these thick patches of cedars and whether or not they are good bedding areas and why they might be holding the deer. And a giant hint is that it's not because of those cedars. Get into these areas and just start dropping cedars. Allow the sunlight and the moisture from the rain to hit the forest floor, and you will get a giant flush of growth from the native forbs and grasses that are just living in that seed bank waiting to be able to grow up. And not only is this great cover, great bedding for deer, great food for deer as well, but it's great nesting habitat, great food habitat for turkeys. Another way you can add some good nesting cover to the places that you hunt, if you don't have these giant patches of cedars, and if you don't, then lucky you, because I'm going to be spending a lot of quality time with a chainsaw cutting down all these cedars. But another thing you could do is along your forest openings, along your food plots, or even some of your bigger trails, is to do some edge feathering. And you need to be careful how you do your edge feathering. It's not about just going in there cutting trees and all that. You kind of got to be strategic about it. You want to add layers to where it goes from field or food plot into forest. And you want to kind of stagger out your hinge cutting. Do 50 to 100 yards in one spot, skip 50, 100 yards, and then do some more. That'll add more diversity around the edge cover. Do that 1 year and then go back a year or 2 later and do that other part. And the second way to send a signal to all the turkeys in the area that they need to come to your property is to literally send a smoke signal and do a prescribed fire. Now, I know I said in the last tip that we're going to go a bit deeper than prescribed fire, but just hear me out, because we're going to be talking about doing prescribed fire for a separate reason than to stimulate the understory. While it is true that doing a prescribed fire will help stimulate the understory, get some native forbs and grasses and stump sprouts to shoot up, provide some cover, the truth is you won't really be able to take advantage of it. That cover won't really be there until after turkey season. So that part won't really happen until the next turkey season. So the reason that I'm including prescribed fire separately from the providing nesting cover tip is that you can take advantage of it. You can get it to work for you this year, the year that you burn. And that is by removing this cover, and it will provide great bugging and dusting habitat. By burning all the leaf litter off the ground, you are essentially pulling back the covers on the soil and not giving bugs places, or giving them few places to hide from turkeys, providing them great places to forage. And you're also going to leave some areas where the dirt is just exposed, or the soot even. It's great places for turkeys to dust their feathers. And there is one thing that you should absolutely stop doing if you want to increase the number of turkeys that are utilizing your property, and that is mowing. Constantly mowing is one of the absolute worst things you can do to your property if you are managing it for wildlife. Now, don't get me wrong, mowing has its place, but constantly mowing it like it's your lawn or a golf course is not the way to go. Fallow fields are some of the best habitats for wildlife, whether it's for bedding or food. Most of the time it's both, if it isn't a field full of fescue. And if you've constantly mowed it, that's probably what it's turned into. Specifically for turkeys, fallow fields provide great places not only for nesting or just escape cover, but great places for bugs. Think about how many buzzing insects you hear when you drive past a tall field in the middle of the summer, even in the spring. That's all food for turkeys. Turn those wasted areas into wildlife havens by waiting to mow until late July, early August, and then mow it for the last time. Give it a week or two, let some fresh growth start to come up a little bit more, and then go back in with some glyphosate and kill it all. Wait for that to dry out, and then light it on fire. Burn off all that duff, and then either leave it alone or lightly disc it. Not only will this turn this field into a great place for deer and turkey, for basically all wildlife, it will also be a lot less work for you. Letting these field areas, this constantly mowed fescue, go fallow, let the native habitat take it over again, is a million times better for all wildlife. So that was 2 things you should do and 1 thing you should absolutely stop doing in order to increase the number of turkeys in your area. If you have any more tips or more projects you've done that have increased your turkey numbers, made your turkey hunting a lot more successful, leave those down in the comments below. Hit that like button if you like this video, share it if you found it helpful, and make sure that you are subscribed so you can stay informed.